They once owned mansions, private jets, multi-million-dollar contracts, and had thousands of people screaming their names beneath the stage lights. But then, a single bad decision, a terrible contract, an addiction, or a family that did not know how to protect them, turned the Hollywood dream into a freefall. Some lost every dollar they had, some were left without a home, and some paid a price even more painful than bankruptcy. The most frightening part is that many of these tragedies did not happen behind closed doors. They unfolded in full view of the public while old movies continued to air and canned laughter kept playing. Today, I will take you back to those glamorous years to explore 30 stories Hollywood once wanted to forget. The closer we get to the final position, the colder the line between fame and tragedy will become. If you enjoy stories about what happens behind the spotlight, press like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you do not miss the next secrets.
Behind the glitter, the scars remain. Welcome to Hollywood Stars and Scars.
Number 30, Larry King. Before the black-framed glasses and microphone turned Larry King into a television icon, he once entered a courtroom with his reputation nearly destroyed. In the early 1970s, Larry was accused of taking $5,000 from a business partner. The charges did not ultimately lead to a conviction, but the media did not wait for the verdict. He lost his job and was virtually pushed out of journalism for several years. By 1978, Larry was carrying approximately $350,000 in debt and had to file for bankruptcy. No show of his own, no studio, and no powerful voice. But instead of disappearing, he returned through small radio programs and gradually built Larry King Live into one of the most famous talk shows in America. This is the first reminder that failure can be an opening chapter. However, the next man had to use bankruptcy law to protect an entire empire. Number 29, 50 Cent. When Indie Club was playing in every nightclub, Curtis Jackson, better known as 50 Cent, was more than a successful rapper. He was a symbol of survival, an entrepreneur who turned music branding and television into a fortune estimated at more than $100 million. That image made his appearance in bankruptcy records in 2015 a major shock to his fans. A lawsuit involving the unauthorized posting of a private video resulted in 50 Cent being ordered to pay millions of dollars in damages. At the same time, several other financial obligations began closing in. He chose Chapter 11 bankruptcy to restructure his finances rather than simply being broke, as tabloid headlines described it. He later made a powerful comeback in television and production. But the next man spent money in ways that seemed possible only in a bizarre movie. Number 28, Nicolas Cage. Nicolas Cage once earned tens of millions of dollars a year and possessed enough wealth to allow several generations to live comfortably. But Cage did not shop like an ordinary millionaire. He purchased castles in Europe, properties in several cities, an island in the Bahamas, a New Orleans mansion famous for its dark history, and an unbelievable collection of unusual objects. Among them were an expensive pet octopus and a dinosaur skull that Cage later had to return after it was determined to have been illegally obtained. A series of unpaid tax bills, combined with the cost of maintaining his properties, forced him to sell assets under unfavorable conditions. Nicolas accepted role after role to repay his debts and eventually reclaimed his position. But not every star who bought real estate stopped at a mansion. The next person once purchased almost an entire town. Number 27, Kim Basinger. By the end of the 1980s, Kim Basinger embodied classic Hollywood beauty. Batman brought her face to audiences around the world, while her later Oscar proved that Kim was more than a symbol of physical beauty. But while the money was flowing in, she and a group of investors spent approximately $20 million to purchase most of the land in the town of Brazelton, Georgia, hoping to transform it into a tourist destination and film production center. The project did not develop as planned. Around the same time, Kim withdrew from the film Boxing Helena after a controversial agreement and was sued. A jury initially awarded $8.1 million in damages, leading her to file for bankruptcy in 1993. Although the ruling was later overturned and the dispute was settled, Kim rebuilt her career, But the next story shows that even a $1 million voice cannot save a bad contract. Number 26, Toni Braxton. In 1996, Unbreak My Heart remained at the top of the Billboard Hot 100 for 11 weeks. Toni Braxton's deep, elegant voice made her seem like an unshakable queen. But while her albums were selling millions of copies, Toni said that the amount of money she actually received was far smaller than the public imagined. An unfavorable recording contract turned into a prolonged legal battle. In 1998, Toni filed for bankruptcy for the first time. She admitted that her extravagant shopping habits also contributed to making the situation worse. After making a comeback, health problems forced her to cancel a Las Vegas residency in 2008, creating new financial obligations and leading to her second bankruptcy filing in 2010. Toni continued performing, proving her remarkable resilience. However, the next case did not begin with a music contract, but with a challenge against the federal government. Number 25, Wesley Snipes. During the 1990s, Wesley Snipes moved across the screen with almost complete confidence. New Jack City, White Men Can't Jump, and the Blade franchise made him one of the most powerful black action stars in Hollywood. But while Blade was destroying vampires on screen, another battle was quietly taking shape inside Wesley's tax records. He was convicted of failing to file federal income tax returns for 3 years and was sentenced to 3 years in prison in 2008. Wesley began serving his sentence in 2010 after several years of legal disputes. This is not the story of someone who failed to earn money, but of the consequences of trusting dangerous tax arguments. After his release, he gradually returned to acting. But the next man did not need to enter prison to watch a $1 million career become buried beneath unpaid bills. Number 24, Stephen Baldwin. Stephen Baldwin appeared in Born on the 4th of July and The Usual Suspects films, significant enough to secure a respectable place in Hollywood history. As a member of the famous Baldwin family, he seemed to have every connection needed to maintain a stable life. But major acting roles gradually became less frequent, while taxes, mortgages, and loans continued coming due. In 2009, Stephen filed for bankruptcy, reporting more than $2 million in debt. There were no Bengal tigers' castles or gold bathtubs in this story. There were only financial obligations that had accumulated over many years, quietly but relentlessly. It took him nearly a decade to complete the bankruptcy process. If his case was death by 1,000 small bills, the next person showed that massive corporations could fail repeatedly while a personal brand continued to survive. Number 23, Donald Trump. Long before entering politics, Donald Trump built the image of a real estate businessman who always won. His name appeared on hotels, casinos, and numerous glamorous buildings. However, behind that brand was a series of projects financed with enormous amounts of debt, particularly in Atlantic City. When revenue was no longer enough to meet loan obligations, the businesses began turning to bankruptcy court. 6 corporate bankruptcies involving Trump's hotel and casino companies occurred between 1991 and 2009. It is important to clarify that he did not file for personal bankruptcy. The companies used Chapter 11 to restructure their debts, while many creditors, contractors, and investors were forced to accept losses. The image of success remained intact. But the next person could not restructure a lifestyle involving 200 employees and an enormous mansion. Number 22, MC Hammer. You could not touch him. Or at least, that was how it felt in the early 1990s. MC Hammer sold millions of albums, wore the baggy pants that became his trademark, and earned approximately $30 million in a single year at the height of his career. He built a mansion worth tens of millions of dollars, maintained a huge entourage, and employed around 200 people, many of whom were friends or relatives. His expenses were reportedly reaching hundreds of thousands of dollars every month. When music sales declined, that entire operation still required money to continue running. In 1996, Hammer filed for bankruptcy with approximately $13 million in debt. What makes me respect him is that after his fall, Hammer did not run away. He continued doing business, performing, and paying the obligations he was able to resolve. But the next star spent tens of millions of dollars on restaurants, horses, and a life designed like an action movie. Number 21, Burt Reynolds. There was a time when Burt Reynolds' smile mustache and posture behind the wheel defined masculinity on the American screen. Smokey and the Bandit and the Cannonball Run helped make him one of the highest-paid actors in the world. Burt owned homes, airplanes, helicopters, cars, hundreds of horses, and a lifestyle that caused a fortune, estimated in the tens of millions of dollars, to disappear rapidly. But his most painful investment came from the restaurant industry. The Po Folks chain and later projects produced major losses, while his divorce from Lonnie Anderson and unpaid loans pushed him toward the edge. In 1996, Burt filed for bankruptcy with approximately $10 million in debt. He still returned with Boogie Nights and earned an Oscar nomination. However, if Burt spent money like a star, the next person spent as though money could never run out. Number 20. Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson once entered the boxing ring with eyes so cold that his opponents seemed defeated before the opening bell. His brief fights earned him hundreds of millions of dollars throughout his career. But behind the lights was a massive, money-burning machine made up of mansions, luxury cars, jewelry, an entourage, legal fees, taxes, support payments, and almost unimaginable extravagant gifts. Tyson once kept Bengal tigers and purchased a gold bathtub worth millions of dollars for his wife at the time. In 2003, he filed for bankruptcy with approximately $23 million in debt, despite having earned more than $300 million during his career. Mike later rebuilt his image through books, stage performances, podcasts, and business ventures. But the next story is even stranger, because an athlete placed his entire fortune into a video game world that had not yet been completed. Number 19. Curt Schilling. On the baseball field, Curt Schilling was known for his precision ability to perform under pressure and historic moments in competition. His Major League Baseball career earned him more than $100 million. After retiring, Schilling did not choose a quiet life. He founded 38 studios with the ambition of building a video game empire capable of competing with the biggest names in the industry. Curt invested tens of millions of dollars of his own money. The state of Rhode Island guaranteed a $75 million loan to persuade the company to relocate there, but costs rose quickly, and funding disappeared before its major projects could be completed. In 2012, 38 studios closed, hundreds of people lost their jobs, and Schilling said he had lost most of his fortune. The company filed for bankruptcy, although he did not personally file for bankruptcy, as some accounts have claimed. The next man also earned tens of millions through sports, only to watch it disappear. Number 18. José Canseco. José Canseco was once the face of power in American baseball. His swings sent balls flying out of stadiums at speeds that made spectators jump to their feet, while his 1988 Most Valuable Player award confirmed his status as a superstar. During his career, Canseco earned approximately $45 million in salary, not including endorsement income. But 2 divorces, taxes, legal expenses, and uncontrolled decisions gradually eroded that fortune. In 2012, José filed for bankruptcy, reporting approximately $21,000 in assets and more than $1.7 million in debt. He often claimed that managers, relatives, former wives, and the financial system had all contributed to his situation. But the cold reality remained. A man could read a pitch traveling more than 100 miles per hour and still fail to see the debt coming toward him. And the next person once dominated the runway but could not walk past the IRS with a perfect stride. Number 17. Janice Dickinson. Janice Dickinson has always called herself the world's first supermodel. Although that title remains disputed, no one can deny that she appeared on countless magazine covers, worked with leading photographers, and became a familiar television personality through America's Next Top Model. Her decades-long career led the public to believe that Janice must have built a stable financial foundation. The reality was completely different. In 2013, Janice filed for bankruptcy with approximately $19,000 in reported assets and nearly $1 million in debt. Most of it came from unpaid taxes, along with medical bills and personal obligations. The woman who once sold an image of perfection to the entire world was now surrounded by paperwork and creditors. But while Janice lost money over many years, the next star believed that tens of millions of dollars belonging to her had been taken by other people. Number 16. Courtney Love. Courtney Love has never moved quietly. She appeared on stage like a storm, singing with a raspy voice, wearing baby doll dresses, and turning chaos into art. After Kurt Cobain's death, the rights connected to the Nirvana music catalog became enormously valuable assets. But Courtney's life was quickly consumed by addiction, child custody disputes, lawsuits, and battles over the management of her property. Courtney once claimed that approximately $27 million belonging to her and her family had been lost or mismanaged. Some stories describe it as money she simply spent, but the truth is far more complicated and involves allegations of fraud in legal disputes. What is certain is that millions of dollars disappeared during a chaotic period. Courtney continued working as an artist, but the next case shows how chaos can become a conspiracy theory that leaves all of Hollywood stunned. Number 15. Randy Quaid. Randy Quaid was once a critically respected actor, earning an Oscar nomination for The Last Detail, before becoming the eccentric Cousin Eddie in National Lampoon's Vacation. He had more than 90 acting credits and earned enough money to live securely. But in 2009, Randy and his wife Evie were arrested following a dispute over a hotel bill and the use of invalid payment information. 1 year later, they were accused of illegally occupying a house they had previously owned. The couple left the United States for Canada and claimed they were being hunted by a secret group called the Starwhackers. Those statements left the public both confused and concerned. Lawsuits, arrest warrants, and years away from Hollywood caused Randy's finances to decline severely. They eventually began living a quieter life in Vermont. But the next person once slept in a car only a short distance from the star bearing his name. Number 14. Danny Bonaduce. In the Partridge Family, Danny Bonaduce was the clever, red-haired boy who always had a line that made audiences laugh. Fame arrived when Danny was far too young to understand that a television show could end while family trauma remained. After the series concluded, he faced addiction arrests and a career that repeatedly fell apart. In 1990, an almost unbelievable irony occurred when Danny traveled to Florida for an event with an anti-drug message and was then arrested while attempting to buy cocaine. At one point, he lived in his car in Hollywood, only a short distance from his own star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. However, Danny found his way back through radio and maintained a career for many years. If this is a story of recovery, the next case began again aboard a cruise ship. Number 13. Willie Aames. By the late 1970s, Willie Aames was a face appearing on the bedroom walls of millions of teenagers. Eight is Enough and Charles in Charge made him a television idol who at one point earned more than $1 million a year. But acting roles dried up, his marriage ended, and alcohol and drugs filled the emptiness left behind by the applause. Willie said he once slept beneath bushes and inside parking garages and had to count every coin he had to buy gasoline.
Oh my God, the distance between primetime television and having nowhere to live can sometimes be only a few years.
Willie became sober, rediscovered his faith, and then accepted a job aboard a cruise ship, rising from an entertainment activities employee to cruise director. He later returned to acting, but the next person had to ask the public for help to avoid losing her home once again. Number 12. Brett Butler. Brett Butler stepped onto comedy stages with a sharp Southern voice and the ability to turn personal wounds into laughter. Grace Under Fire became one of ABC's most successful sitcoms of the 1990s, bringing her fame and a very high income. But substance abuse made Brett's behavior increasingly difficult to control, while the set became a place of constant tension. In 1998, the show was abruptly canceled. The role disappeared, her savings declined, and Brett left Hollywood for Georgia. She later admitted that she had become homeless and had to begin again through small jobs. In 2021, while she was in poor health and her opportunities had been affected by the pandemic, friends launched a fundraising campaign to help her cover living expenses. Brett survived, but the next story brought an actress all the way to a hospital bed before she made a remarkable comeback. Number 11. Natasha Lyonne. Her raspy voice, red hair, and slightly rebellious intelligence made Natasha Lyonne stand out from the moment she appeared in American Pie. She did not need to try to play a cool girl. That defiance seemed naturally present in every look she gave. But in the early 2000s, that image changed from appealing to alarming, as Natasha faced addiction legal trouble and eviction from her apartment. In 2005, she was hospitalized in serious condition, with hepatitis C, a heart infection, and several other health problems. At one point, Natasha had almost no career and no stable place to live. She entered treatment, became sober, and returned one small role at a time. Orange is the New Black, Russian Doll, and Poker Face later turned her into a powerful actress, writer, and director. But not everyone photographed on the streets has found a way back.
Number 10. Loni Willison.
There was a time when Loni Willison appeared in fitness photo shoots with tan skin, a strong body, and a perfect smile. Her marriage to Baywatch actor Jeremy Jackson made her seem like part of the California dream. But after the relationship ended in 2014, Loni's mental health, employment, and finances all declined at the same time. By around 2016, she had lost her apartment and her car. Years later, photographers spotted Loni pushing a cart filled with belongings to the streets of Los Angeles, searching for food and refusing several offers of assistance. What makes me uncomfortable is that the cameras continued recording her. The only difference was that they were no longer celebrating her. Loni became content for the tabloids. But the next case carried a lasting sense of guilt from a horrifying accident. Number 9. Leif Garrett. By the end of the 1970s, Leif Garrett's face covered teenage magazines. His blonde hair, dreamy smile, and pop songs made him the fantasy of an entire generation. Leif became famous at an extremely young age and was given money cars and freedom, but almost no boundaries. Drugs entered his life before he was mature enough to understand the consequences. In 1979, while under the influence, Leif crashed his car, leaving his friend Roland Winkler paralyzed. Guilt followed him, while his music career declined and arrests continued to occur. In 2010, he was arrested again for heroin possession. Leif has spoken about his attempts to become sober and accept responsibility for his past. But the wound from that night cannot be erased. And the next person also became famous as a child before eventually suing his own parents.
Number 8. Gary Coleman.
The line, "What you talking about, Willis?" became part of popular culture through Gary Coleman in different strokes. Despite his small stature caused by congenital kidney disease and years of treatment, Gary had enough energy to carry a successful sitcom. At the height of his career, he earned tens of thousands of dollars per episode and was considered one of the most famous child stars in America. As an adult, Gary discovered that most of his fortune had disappeared. He sued his adoptive parents and business manager, winning more than $1 million in damages, but still had to file for bankruptcy in 1999. Health problems limited acting roles, and legal trouble continued to follow him. Gary worked as a security guard and sold autographs to support himself. He died in 2010 after suffering a head injury. But the next girl never even received a late career comeback.
Number 7. Erin Moran.
In Happy Days, Erin Moran played Joni Cunningham, the lovable younger sister who made audiences feel as though they were watching a member of their own family. The character became so popular that Erin was given her own series, Joni Loves Chachi. However, the show quickly failed. When Erin returned to Happy Days, the television era had changed, and Hollywood no longer seemed to know what to do with her. The acting roles disappeared, while financial difficulties and personal problems forced Erin to live in a mobile home in Indiana with her husband's family. After leaving that home, her life remained unstable, and tabloids described her as a former star who had lost everything. In 2017, Erin died at the age of 56 from advanced squamous cell carcinoma. It was not drugs, as many early rumors had claimed, and that was the most bitter part of all.
Number 6. John Drew Barrymore.
John Drew Barrymore was born with a surname that was almost part of American theatrical history. He was the son of John Barrymore and later became the father of Drew Barrymore. Hollywood expected a worthy successor, and his early roles in High Lonesome and The Sundowners showed that John had both the appearance and talent to fulfill that expectation. But an unstable childhood and a complicated relationship with fame quickly pulled him in another direction. Arrests, public conflicts, alcohol, and unpredictable behavior gradually caused the studios to turn away from John. He traveled to Europe, returned to America, and then disappeared from public life for many years. Friends called him the ghost of the Barrymore family. As John's health declined, Drew Barrymore financially supported and cared for her father during his final years. He died in 2004. Forgiveness arrived, but too late to save a career. The next person's family even had to seek donations for his funeral.
Number 5. Corey Haim. Corey Haim once received approximately 2,000 fan letters every week. Lucas, the Lost Boys and License to Drive, turned the Canadian boy into one of the biggest teenage idols of the 1980s. On screen, Corey had a vulnerability that immediately made audiences want to protect him. But Hollywood itself failed to protect him when fame pressure and drug use entered his life at an extremely young age. In the early 2000s, Corey lived with his mother, struggled financially, and sold personal memorabilia online. At one point, he even listed a tooth and locks of his hair for sale, a detail that sounds almost humorous until you understand the desperation behind it. Corey died in 2010 at the age of 38. The official report identified pneumonia as the primary cause, along with other health problems. His family struggled to cover the funeral expenses. But the next star had the entire world witness his decline through social media. Number 4. Aaron Carter. Aaron Carter was only 9 years old when his debut album brought him into a world of stadiums, television, and screaming fans. As Nick Carter's younger brother, Aaron, quickly developed his own fame through energetic pop songs, he earned millions of dollars before he was old enough to understand a tax return. But as an adult, Aaron claimed that his parents had poorly managed his finances and that most of the money was gone. In 2013, Aaron filed for bankruptcy with approximately $3.5 million in debt, most of it connected to taxes incurred during his teenage years. He later completed the bankruptcy process, but mental health problems, addiction, and family conflict continued to unfold publicly. On November 5, 2022, Aaron was found dead at his home at the age of 34. Authorities concluded that he drowned after inhaling compressed gas and taking sedative medication. The next story is far lonelier. Number 3. Bobby Driscoll. Bobby Driscoll was once Disney's first golden boy. He received a special Academy Award for Young Performers, appeared in Song of the South and Treasure Island, and later became both the voice and the live-action movement model for Peter Pan. Bobby represented the innocence the studio wanted to sell to American families, but when he entered puberty, his appearance changed, and a skin condition caused Disney to decide not to renew his contract. Without any transition plan, Bobby was pushed out of the system that had controlled almost his entire childhood. He began using drugs, was arrested, and spent time in compulsory treatment. In 1968, 2 children discovered Bobby's body inside an abandoned building in New York. He was only 31 years old and carried no identification, so he was buried in an unmarked grave. His family did not learn what had happened to him until nearly 2 years later. But the next position shows that a person can still return even when the scars never disappear. Number 2. Margot Kidder. For Margot Kidder, Lois Lane was not a woman who stood around waiting for Superman to rescue her. She was intelligent, determined, and willing to run directly into danger to uncover the truth. 4 Superman films turned Margot into a global icon, but a car accident in 1990 left her seriously injured, unable to work for an extended period, and trapped in a financial crisis. At the same time, her bipolar disorder, which had not yet been consistently treated, increasingly affected her life. In 1996, Margot disappeared for several days and was found in the Glendale area in a panicked condition, with her hair cut and damage to her teeth. Those images immediately became material for the tabloids. After receiving treatment, she moved to Montana, continued acting, and became a social activist. Margot died in 2018, and her death was ruled a suicide. Her story is painful, but the final position ended with the very gift that had once been given in love. Number 1. Marvin Gaye.
Marvin Gaye did not simply sing soul music. He turned every recording into an intensely personal confession. What's Going On, Let's Get It On, and Sexual Healing showed that he could sing about love, war, and injustice while making millions of people feel understood. However, a childhood under his father's harsh control, broken marriages, tax, debt disputes with record companies, drug use, and paranoia repeatedly pushed him into crisis. Although Sexual Healing brought him a Grammy Award and a brilliant comeback, Marvin still returned to live with his parents in Los Angeles while he was in an extremely fragile mental state. On April 1st, 1984, Marvin intervened in an argument between his father and mother. The conflict escalated, and Marvin Gaye Sr. used a gun that his son had purchased to shoot him. Marvin died just one day before his 45th birthday, leaving approximately $9 million in debt, although his musical legacy later helped settle many of those financial obligations. The greatest tragedy is that the man who created music that healed the entire world could not find peace inside his own home. Marvin did not lack talent. He lacked a truly safe place to return to. Fame is not proof that someone is doing well. Wealth cannot replace sobriety, a healthy family, or trustworthy professionals. The most important lesson may be very simple. Do not hand complete control of your life to someone else. Do not treat seeking help as a sign of weakness. And do not turn another person's pain into entertainment simply because they once appeared on a screen. A contract needs to be read carefully. Taxes must be handled on time. Mental health needs to be addressed before a crisis occurs. Children working in the entertainment industry must have people who protect their money and rights with genuine independence. Those things may sound boring, but sometimes they are the only parachute standing between a star and a fall from which there is no recovery. Of all the people featured today who moved you or stayed in your memory the most, share their name and your thoughts in the comments. Do not forget to press like, subscribe to Hollywood Stars and Scars, and turn on notifications to join me for the next stories about fame, scars, and the truths Hollywood has tried to bury for decades. I will see you in the next story.